12-hour layover in London Gatwick Airport. A completely different experience to the one in Istanbul. A few months ago, I released a story about the mammoth 21-hour layover in Istanbul Airport I had in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the long wait and having to stay awake for more than 24 hours, the experience was pretty good. In 2022, I experienced another long layover at London Gatwick Airport as I returned to Canada from Germany. I started my lengthy journey in Pendling, Bavaria, where I had been staying with friends, as I embarked on my 37-hour trip to get home to London, Ontario. Bar the 3 hours of sleep that I managed to get on my longest flight, I ended up being awake for 48 hours. By the time I reached the bed in my little basement apartment, I was done. Actually, my travel time was meant to be slightly shorter, but almost every flight and train was delayed due to weather conditions and staff shortages around the world after the global pandemic. Getting to Gatwick. After a bus from Pendling to Regensburg, a train and a bus to Munich Airport, a 5-hour wait for my flight, including a 1-hour delay, plus 45 minutes of sitting on the tarmac, waiting for clearance from the tower, I was finally on my way to London Gatwick Airport. I couldn't fall asleep on the 2-hour flight as I'm not skilled at short naps, despite knowing I was in for a 12-hour layover waiting for me the moment I touched down. The last and only time I was in Gatwick Airport was at 14. I was traveling alone from South Africa to England to see my godmother, but due to severe fog, was rerouted from Heathrow to the smaller airport. Please feel free to watch the video of this trip entitled Traveling the Day After the Plane Crash, a journey of pure oblivion. As my last visit to Gatwick was in 1987, I had no memory of the airport. My 12-hour layover begins. I had very little hope that I would be able to check my bags onto my Toronto flight as soon as I arrived at the airport, as most bag checks only open 3 hours before a flight. The opportunity would have left me luggage-free to wander the terminal, as well as allowing me to move past security into the transit terminal, which boasts better amenities. Unfortunately, I was out of luck. There I was, along with a motley crew of others, trying to find anywhere to rest until our time penalty ran out. As I wandered through the domestic terminal, looking for a comfortable place to lay my weary body, I saw people crammed into every nook and cranny, including one gentleman lying face down on a baggage repacking table. One enterprising and obviously prepared couple blew up some air mattresses and tucked themselves in with blankets and blow-up pillows for the night. It was 2 a.m. in London, and nothing before security was open. I found a little spot near the bathrooms and settled on the floor with my luggage stacked neatly next to me, and my head nestled into my airplane pillow, supported by my backpack. I had packed some food and snacks for the long journey, but my rations were running low. I tucked into a protein bar, nibbled on some nuts, and chased it all down with water. Now, the thing about Gatwick Airport that many may not realize, simply because they don't have to, is that there are almost no carpeted areas in the entire international terminal. Carpets are a traveler's best friend, especially during long layovers, as the rows and rows of upright chairs are not the best place to rest. Soon I was shivering uncontrollably, as the cold from the stone floor sent a chill into my bones. I got up and moved around, trying to get my blood moving and willing it to warm my body again. It was now 3:30 in the morning, and I had been awake for almost 24 hours. I refuse to fall asleep in airports when I travel alone. Just recently, a young friend had her bag stolen while sleeping at an airport in Spain, including her cell phone and money. As my life currently revolves around travel, I carry many vital items and documents with me, and losing them is a chance I'm not willing to take for a few hours of rest. I dragged my shivering body off the floor and wandered through the terminal to the coffee shops, which were starting to open for the day. After my Canadian debit card wouldn't go through at one cafe, I took my chance at another, and this time, success. I bought a hot coffee and a muffin that I later discovered was pure sugar. Like a character from Lord of the Rings, I hauled my treasures off to a spot on the floor near the WestJet kiosks and took a sip of the coffee. In that moment, I didn't care that it was terrible. It felt good to get something warm into my frozen body. The shot of caffeine gave me a boost to get through the next few hours until I could get rid of my luggage and enter Nirvana, the transit terminal. Finally, the time came, and I sent my luggage off with a huge sigh of relief as the conveyor belt carried it away. Toronto Pearson Airport now allows some luggage to be booked through to a final domestic destination, which means that travelers are not required to collect their luggage at their first entry point into the country before dropping it off at a transfer desk. This may not be the case for all flights, but for the last 4 years, it has been relevant to mine and saves a lot of time and hassle when making connections. After 5.5 months of hauling 2 bags and a backpack through Europe, I can't describe the relief I felt knowing that the next time I got my hands on them, I would be home. The transit terminal, whilst a better option than the sparse area I had spent the last 7 hours, was not entirely Nirvana. The lack of carpeting continued to haunt me, and the seating options left a lot to be desired. Nonetheless, I wandered through the terminal, looking at what was on offer, and decided to get a quick bite before my next flight. Alas, it was not to be. After yet another machine didn't accept my debit card, I gave up and decided to wait for the meal that would greet me on the 7-hour flight to my promised land, Canada. After an extensive search and a lot of walking to release the tension in my back, I found possibly the only piece of carpet in London Gatwick Airport, as I sat watching a few YouTube videos on my phone to while away the remaining time. A gate change, another 1-hour flight delay, and a 30-minute wait on the tarmac for the go-ahead from the tower, I was finally able to eat and sleep, if only for a few hours. At this point, I knew that I would miss my connection in Toronto, but I surrendered to what I couldn't control. I was content in the knowledge that it would soon be over. The view of Canada as we descended filled me with joy, knowing that I was about to touch down in the land I loved. Another epic adventure and long layover behind me.